kind of how a lot of these prosecutions work.
Well, really, give me examples of where that has been considered appropriate.
I mean, look.
She's going to have a hard time now because she doesn't have an example. Oh, this interview here gets a little crazy. I tell you what, Dr. Phil lately has been, to say the least, impressive. He has been talking about issues that very few people are willing to talk about. He's been kind of stepping out of his comfort zone, not just addressing this psychological side of the issues. And he's explained why he feels that way is because he cares about his country. He wants to see his family live in a prosperous America. And the least you could do is to be quiet during a time of crisis. You know, I've always loved the message that says the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Dr. Phil has become a good man from my perspective. He's been one of those who said, you know what, man, I'm going to speak up and speak out. And I'm going to take a common sense position. It's not even left or nor right. It's just like, I'm an American and these issues are happening. And what's happening to Donald J. Trump is incorrect. It's not right. It's not Christian. And I think it's only fair that we speak about this. So we have Abby Phillips on CNN, and she's talking to Dr. Phil. Let me get that right. Okay, I'm not. My gender orientation is, I have that perspective correct. Don't let me mess up the pronouns now. So let me move on. Here is the thing. He's going to get a little spicy, but he's going to ask a number of questions that really challenged her because it seems like she wasn't ready for this. But I love how calm and poised and simple Dr. Phil is about his discussion on these issues. I'm enjoying this guy. I've been enjoying him a lot more. Anyway, link in the description below. Like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. Let's take a listen.
Put people who are at the higher levels of the organization behind bars. I don't understand how you, for those people to then testify in subsequent trials for their alleged.
Now, the question is now they're talking about Michael Cohen and Michael Cohen's involvement in the case. Dr. Phil feels the need that was not good. That was a setup in a sense. He went too far, you know what I'm saying, to kind of throw Trump under the bus. So now she's going to respond to that, and you're going to see how this is going. This is addressed.
Has pled out or made a non-prosecution agreement and allow that information into the jury's awareness because it's very prejudicial and is not really probative of anything that they're asked to be problem solving or consider.
Who are you referring to there?
Michael Cohen.
I mean, well,
yeah.
Dr. Phil, I don't want to get too deep into the law here, but it is not uncommon at all for people who are accomplices to crimes, people who have taken plea deals, non-prosecute. That is not uncommon at all for those people to then testify in subsequent trials for their alleged co-conspirators. That's.
Now, you hear what she's saying. It's not uncommon at all for, you know, supposedly co-conspirators to come out and speak. She's generalizing the situation. And I love what Dr. Phil is about to do. He's going to say, give me an example.
Kind of how a lot of these prosecutions work.
Well, really, give me examples of where that has been considered appropriate.
I mean, look.
She's going to have a hard time now because she doesn't have an example. She doesn't, again, one thing I noticed with the left, they have the ability to generalize all the time. And Dr. Phil is asking for an example. I want you to be more specific about what you're saying. She doesn't have one. And the reason that is because there isn't one. At least it's never been used in political realm like she is actually trying to make a connection to. Now, it's one thing you're talking about drug dealers and gangsters and, you know what I'm saying, like cartel members and so on. That's another case, somebody. But we're talking about Donald Trump. We're talking about a politician here. We're not talking about these gangsters and so on. Anyway, watch what happened next.
Prosecutors are prosecuting organized crime all the time, and in a lot of those cases, they are relying on co-conspirators to put people who are at the higher levels of the organization behind bars.
She just repeats herself thinking that's going to change anything, but I want you to notice what Dr. Phil is about to do again.
I don't understand how you can say that because someone signed was not prosecuted, signed a non-prosecution agreement, that information or their testimony cannot be presented before the jury if they were a part of the alleged scheme.
Well, you'll have to give me an example to respond to because
I love it. Well. She doesn't have one. You know what's gonna happen next? I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen. She's gonna just move on. Let's move on. Let's move on to something else.
I just simply don't agree with that. I think it's not typical for juries to do this. I've spent most of my career
It happens in
in
mob
that, and
cases all the time.
Mob cases. Now, how do you transfer mob cases to a supposed federal crime, right? To an issue that has to supposedly do with a document case. How do you? That's two major extremes. But again, when you're desperate for connection, when you're desperate for illustration, you will use some of the worst. And again, that's what she's doing here. But Dr. Phil is not backing down.
I don't
Give me an
understand.
example.
Look, cases all the time. I
Give me
don't
an
understand.
example.
Give me an example.
Look, Dr. Phil, I mean, I don't understand why you would think that Michael Cohen, who is a key person in a lot of the narrative here, should not have been allowed to testify in this case. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I said what I said. I think the fact that he made an agreement to say that he is guilty of the crime that the defendant is being tried for prejudices the jury that, hey, here's someone that's supposedly an accomplice that has said, I'm guilty of this. That prejudices a jury about the person that's currently on trial for the same crime.
Facts. And I think the jury themselves were sadly and badly manipulated in so many different ways. But again, a lot more could be said about them. But again, what do we expect? New York City, Democratic run city, your own judge, your own jury. It's just a hot mess.
I have some quibbles with what you're describing as the same crime. Michael Cohen was not charged with falsifying business records. That he actually did not was not prosecuted for that crime. But I do want to move on because
of course you want to move on because you're not gonna go anywhere. And I love how he just stands still and keeps holding strong to his position.
On this issue of what Trump is going to do if he is elected.
Now, this part is really interesting. And again, I'm commenting here because that's what I'm supposed to be doing, okay? Link in the description below if you don't want to hear what I have to say. Here is the thing. Now, she's going to move on to talk about retribution. There's one thing I've noticed the left has been talking about lately a lot is retribution. It's almost like there is a fear that Trump is going to come back and get us. Now, I'm asking the question, like, if you're afraid of retribution, why do you keep poking the bear? Why do you keep doing that? And I'm in no way saying I'm for retribution. Listen, man, the Bible says judgment is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. As a Christian, we ought to forgive and pray for our enemies. We understand that. But what they're doing to Trump, okay, they're setting a stage for serious backlash that could potentially lead to serious retribution. And I'm in no way saying I want it, but I'm saying that could actually happen if you keep on pushing this button. But again, they're going to try to make the connection. Biden has nothing to do with this. This is just the FBI that are doing their thing. But that's not normal. But let's keep listening, though.
Did you get any clarity from him about whether he would try to pursue the people perhaps who pursued him, DAs or his political enemies?
Well, certainly that's a big issue. And I lean very strongly into the position of saying, look, this is not going to help this country. If you get into a position of power and your agenda is one of revenge, retribution, saying, okay, you came after me, so now I'm going to come after you, America picks up the tab for that. That's not anything that's good to do. That's going to take up time. That's just playing tit for tat. So you go after them because they came after you, then they come after you because they go after them. In the meantime, what about America? What about the business of America? What about the issues of education? What about the issues of the border? What about the issues of inflation? What about the issues of healthcare? What about all the things that the people really care about? They're not interested in you playing gotcha with the people that you think got you. We're not interested in that. Nobody's interested in that. And
how did
calling
you
on
respond to that when that's your perspective. What do you sense is his inclination? Because just today,
he smiled a little bit. I'm not sure if you caught that, because she turned around and said that's your perspective. It's like the disrespect that all these people are showing is pretty ridiculous.
Is his inclination because I mean that's your perspective. What do you
You see the smile is like, that's my perspective. Anyway, let's keep going.
sense is his inclination? Because just today, he said, for example, that he would indict the January 6th committee members, presumptively the members of Congress who were on that committee investigating what happened on January 6th. Are you more or less convinced after sitting down with him that he actually would follow through on those kinds of pledges?
Pledges.
Well, I actually don't think he will. I think this is a situation that, it's a process. This is something that I think he's had in his mind, that there's only one way to go, and that's to get even. And I think I've really made some headway with him that is not the way to go. I think it's a process. I think he'll turn this over and over in his mind, and I don't think he will do that. And to the extent that I have any opportunity to lean into this with him, I am going to relentlessly try and get him to not do that, and to get others to not do that. Look, we need to stop this. This is a time where America needs to come together, not be playing gotcha and going on some kind of revenge tour.
I agree. Like it needs to be stopped. But who has started this, right? And the question is, who has begun this process? We can go as far and say Trump did say some things, right? Lock her up and so on, right? But did he do it? No, he didn't do it. Now, he said a number of things, right? And again, Trump uses words to say a number of things, but he hasn't really used he hasn't really weaponized the justice system to go after his political opponent in the way that the left has done. The left don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk. I notice a lot of people on the right, they just talk, but they're really not going to do a lot of the things that, we take a more high ground for the most part. We're not going to do a lot of the things that we talk about. Not so with the left. They are completely radical. And it needs to be stopped. And I do agree. And she's trying to get a clear response from him, as if, like, if Trump was going to do something, he has to spell it out. And that's when I feel safe. But why does he have to? Because if he tells you, I'm never going to do something, well, wait a minute. If you keep whipping me and beating me down, and I say, I'm not going to retaliate. I'm not going to punch back. You know what that does? It encourages you to keep going. But what Donald Trump has been doing lately, he hasn't been clear about the way he's going to respond, but he's not going out there saying, I will not respond. If you say that, you become a punching bag, and they're going to keep going after you because they know you're not going to respond. You're not going to retribute. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with what Trump is doing. Trump is saying, man, this needs to stop. And if you don't stop it, so I do agree.
A revenge tour. We don't need that. We don't have time for that. It's not good for America. We need to unify, not be going after people that we think came after us, whether we think they did so fairly or otherwise.
Yeah, it sounds like
we don't need that. The last thing we need is for Trump to be going after people that he thinks have treated him unfairly.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you are personally taking it upon yourself to talk through this with him. But for the voters who are evaluating this very issue, Donald Trump is explicitly saying, I'm going to prosecute my predecessor, Joe Biden, if I'm elected. He's explicitly saying...
Well, why are you asking him the question if you already know the answer? If you already believe Trump is going to prosecute, you heard him say that according to what you're saying. He already told you, I'm leaning strongly on us uniting and forgiveness and moving forward, right? Okay. And sometimes I'm all for moving forward, but justice must be served, because let me explain to you something. You can't move forward if the people who hate this country, who are attacking the president, who are stymieing, or are standing in the way of success, if you don't move them out of the way. If they stand and stopping things from happening, they're making it impossible for you to work. Every legislation, every effort, and they keep dragging you into the court, and they keep giving you trouble. That's not good either. Like, these people needs to be prosecuted. They needs to be addressed. They need to be sat down. And I'm not calling for You know what I'm saying? I'm not calling for cancellation of these individuals. That's not how I do. God is the judge, not me. But to say you shouldn't do anything about them, how are you going to move forward if they stand in the way? How is that going to happen? And this is something you have to think about. So when people go into some really weird, strange political revenge, although I'm not for it, but some of them have good intent at heart. I'm gonna be honest with you. Some of them do. They go too far. They've done too much, and they become radical, and that we don't want. But the way you stop it is by stopping what you're doing right now. The way you stop it is by stop prosecuting and persecuting and trying to lock up your political opponent that you know is going to win, and you can't beat him at the ballot box, and you just want to lock him up. It's very obvious what's going on here, but you don't want retribution though. But you are still persecuting though.
He wants to go after his political enemies. He will go after the members of Congress who were doing their jobs investigating what happened on January 6th. Don't voters need to weigh that, especially since the argument that Trump is making with no evidence is that Biden is going after him?
Well, I think they absolutely have to weigh that. And if they think that Donald Trump or any other candidate is going to do that, then, and they think that is not what I'm putting somebody in office for, then they absolutely shouldn't vote for them.
I agree. I weigh that myself. I don't think that's what Trump is going to do. I've already had a video where Trump is saying clearly, no, it just has to stop. He just has to stop. And I think if Trump wanted to be that guy, he could have been in 2016. He could have dealt with Hillary. He could have addressed a lot of people. Now, we understand that the president doesn't have the power to do all of this in and of himself, but he could weaponize the justice system to go after anyone that he wants to go after. That's a possible thing. That's what's happening now with Biden. Is very obvious. That's what's going on. So Trump hasn't really shown that kind of spirit. So that's why I think, I still support Donald Trump. But I will say, if you keep going after him the way that you are, I don't know, man, he might turn into that kind of guy. And we don't want that, though. You don't want to create a monster out of him, which is still a possibility.
I don't think that's what we're putting people in office to do. That's running their agenda instead of America's agenda. And we need people to run America's agenda. Look, we've got serious problems, and it takes serious people to deal with those problems. I'm not a political animal. It doesn't matter to me whether somebody's Democrat or Republican. I could care less, don't know enough about politics to talk about it intelligently. But I can tell you this, from a cultural standpoint, we need people working on the problems that are impacting the quality of life in America, impacting the quality of medical care, impacting the quality of education, impacting the quality of people's ability to feed and take care of their families. And that doesn't leave room to be playing gotcha and retribution and revenge. That's not what we need. We need people to get in there and do their jobs. And if not, they shouldn't have the privilege. That's not a legacy, it's a privilege. And we shouldn't be putting people in office that want to play those kind of games.
I have to say I agree with his final analysis and perspective on the matter. It is true. We don't want any more retribution and wars and back and forth. It's not going to benefit the country as a whole. But I think the Biden administration, I think the left, instead of celebrating some of this stuff, you haven't heard anybody from the media coming from the left, at least the mainstream media. They're not coming condemning this matter. They actually all for it. They're celebrating. Yeah, great. Why are you celebrating that? That's not a good thing to celebrate. That's bad for the country. And this is kind of how you get people to retaliate. And then you say, you can't retaliate. Why are you celebrating the thing? But anyway, much more could be said. Let me share quickly with you where I stand when it comes to some of this. I stand where the Bible stands, to be honest with you. What the scripture says is that vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. We are told the eyes of the Lord are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 3. According to the word of God, he is beholding both that which is evil and both that which is good. We are told also in Romans 12, verse 17, recompense to no man evil for evil. And what else? Providing things honest in the sight of man. Verse 18 says, if it possible, for as much as lies in you, live peaceably with all men. Verse 21, be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. But if you want this to be true and you don't want to see the retribution coming forward, well, you got to stop attacking the guy. You got to stop persecuting the guy that you have a problem with, that you refuse for him to fight back against you. And that's what I will say. And much more could be said about that. Link in the description below. Like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more. I want to hear from you, where do you stand when it comes to this. Until next time, have a good one. Bye.